What's going on, guys? Alex here with TFLoffroad. We use action cams pretty much every day to make our videos here at TFL. We've been using a bunch of different brands. We've got the Sony FDR X3000, GoPro's Hero 7 Black, and we just started using the DJI Osmo Action. We've been asking ourselves which camera is the best to make our YouTube videos with. So today we're gonna put all three of these cameras to the test, decide which action cam is actually the best, and maybe that will help you decide which action cam to get to record your off-roading or whatever else you want. In this video, we're gonna mount all three of these cameras in identical positions while driving around so we can compare the images side by side, and we're gonna be testing the video quality, audio quality, stabilization, durability, ease of use, ease of mounting, and much more. So today I chose to bring out the TRD Pro, or the TFL Pro as we like to call it here. We've been doing a build series on this over on TFL Truck, so if you're interested to see how this thing all went together and see it off-road a little more in depth than in this camera review, definitely go back to TFL Truck to check that out. Before we start driving around and testing these cameras out, we have to actually mount them. We never shoot handheld with these. We use DSLRs for that. These are the cameras we stick in tight places like on windshields, outsides of cars, under cars, so you can see suspension flex. So we definitely need to mount these somewhere. We'll start with the Sony because it's pretty easy to mount. We have a tripod thread on the bottom, and this is the only action cam out of the three with a tripod thread. So super simple, screw it onto pretty much any suction cup mount that has a tripod thread on it, and you're good to go. Now the GoPro we have a little housing for. There's no tripod mount, so the camera just slides in and out of this little plastic housing. And then we have the standard GoPro mounting system on the bottom, so we can stick that into a suction cup mount, and then we can use one of our thumb screws to lock that down in place. Now it looks like DJI copied a lot from GoPro, and that might be a little true. It looks like they did steal some stuff from GoPro. They use this same style of housing that just slides in there, just like the GoPro, and then we have the standard GoPro mounts on the bottom too, so you can use their little system that they provide. This has a little quick release on the adhesive mounts, but we have so many GoPro accessories lying around at TFL already, and me personally, I do at home as well, that it's easier for me at least to just use the stuff that comes with the GoPro directly with the Osmo. They're cross compatible, it's super simple, and they sell GoPro stuff pretty much anywhere. So this is a shot you see a lot here at TFL. We obviously test cars all the time, and naturally we need some kind of in-cab driving footage, so we use an action cam mounted to the windshield. Right now I have all three cameras mounted, and the audio will be switching between camera to camera, just so you can get a feel for it. All three cameras are set to record in 4K at 30 frames per second. That's a common resolution and frame rate that all three of these cameras have. Both the GoPro and the Osmo Action have really great options for frame rates. The Sony's a little bit more limited, but that's to be expected since it's a few years older. The Osmo and the GoPro are both waterproof by themselves. You can put a waterproof housing on the outside of them to take them even deeper, but right out of the box, they're both waterproof, whereas the Sony is not. So the Sony naturally has a little bit better audio quality. The Sony also has a 3.5 millimeter audio in jack on the back, so you could run an external microphone with it if you wanted to, but because the Sony is not waterproof, the second you put it inside of that waterproof housing, the audio just becomes super muffled. You pretty much lose all your audio. So great audio on the Sony as long as you don't touch the water. The Osmo and the GoPro have better audio if you do need to get the cameras wet. And just for a means of comparison, the Sony is now installed into the waterproof housing. So now all three of these cameras could get splashed a little bit. You can't take the GoPro or the Osmo more than like 11 meters underwater without external housing, but the audio is definitely a little bit better. The clear winner here is the Sony because of these front-facing stereo mics. You're talking into them the whole time, especially if you're filming yourself, so you get super clean audio. It does not sound like an action cam, and you get that 3.5mm jack on the back, so you can run a lav mic or an external shotgun or something like that if you want to. Both of these cameras are pretty comparable. I will say the Osmo Action has a little bit better audio quality than the GoPro, but if you're planning on getting your action camera wet, which I'm sure a lot of people are, stick with one of these for audio, because the second you put the Sony into its waterproof housing, you lose all of your audio. All right, let's talk about durability, and I'm gonna start with the worst camera, which is the Sony. Unfortunately, the lens on the front is not replaceable. So if you happen to shatter this, and trust me, we know from experience here at TFL that that does happen, you're out of luck. You have to buy a completely new camera. Sony does sell a little lens cover, little lens protector for this, which you can shoot through. It's clear glass, but they don't include that in the box. So you need to make sure you get that right away, because if you drop this without the lens protector and your lens shatters, you're completely out of luck. Also, they do include the waterproof housing, but the camera's not waterproof on its own at all. So if you're not planning on getting wet and you don't use this, but you come across a little puddle off-roading, and you happen to get your camera wet, you run the risk of breaking it. Now the GoPro's a little bit better, water resistant up to 10 meters, so you don't need to worry about a dive housing if you're gonna get this wet. The lens is replaceable, although it takes a lot of effort to unscrew this little front filter. But if you need to do it, it takes a little bit of time, and you can order a replacement lens online. It's waterproof up to 10 meters on its own. You can get a super suit, which is what GoPro calls their waterproof housing. That will make it waterproof up to 60 meters. And overall, it's a pretty durable unit. They have this rubberized coating on the outside. It can take a little bit of a beating. Not a bad camera. Moving on to the DJI, I will say I really like the durability of this for one reason, and that is the filter on the front. Super easy to replace. If you crack this, you can get a new one and slap it on there in 2 seconds. You can also get ND filters and swap them out super easily on the DJI. Also water resistant without a dive housing to 11 meters. One weird thing though, they don't actually sell a dive housing to go any deeper than that. They sell one for their Osmo Pocket, which is not an action camera. Doesn't make any sense that they don't have one for this. It may be coming soon. There are some third-party ones out there, but overall, just because of the fact that the lens filter screws off on the front, it's threaded, I will say it's my favorite choice out of the three as far as durability goes. So I've had a chance to review the footage, and the first thing I want to talk about is video quality, and more specifically, the field of view for all three of these cameras. The GoPro is by far the widest. You have an extremely wide field of view and you can see pretty much everything. It makes framing up your shots super easy. The Sony, also a pretty wide field of view, not quite as wide as the GoPro, but you still can see a ton. The Osmo Action, on the other hand, is definitely the narrowest field of view. It also looks the most natural. You have the least amount of distortion, least amount of fisheye on the Osmo. But the Osmo does not have an adjustable field of view, whereas these two cameras do. So you can choose between 3 different settings. On the Sony, we were shooting at the widest setting, which is what it comes out with out of the box. And then the GoPro has 4 different settings. We were shooting on wide, which is the 3rd widest. There's also super view, but that's only available in certain frame rates and resolutions. Next up, I just want to talk about the overall color and just the general picture that these 3 cameras produce. So when I was driving down the road, we had a little bit of a backlit situation. There was sun going directly into the 3 lenses. And I have to say the GoPro handled it the best. It didn't wash out any of the colors, and it still looked really sharp and really saturated. The DJI was a little bit washed out. The colors got a little bit dull, not as saturated, but overall it wasn't bad. The Sony, when it had sunlight coming directly into the lens, turned very streaky. Top to bottom, there were streaks coming all the way down, and it looked really terrible. Then I turned the Land Cruiser around and we had a little bit of a more balanced lighting situation. It wasn't quite as harsh and we were able to see how the cameras act in normal situations. the Sony was still the worst. Everything's a little washed out, and no matter the situation you're in, you're not going to get amazing color out of this camera. The GoPro on the other end of the spectrum was super saturated. You get really bright blues, and that's kind of the standard GoPro look. That's what we all remember for years and years GoPros looking like. They kind of mimic that action sport, snowboarding video type of style, and that's really the look they go for. But you can put this camera into a flat color profile and do some color correction in post. The Osmo Action, on the other hand, definitely the most color accurate camera out of these three. The colors were not really too washed out in most situations, and overall nothing was way oversaturated. It just looked right. The color is slightly adjustable on the Sony. You can pick between a few presets, but you have the ability to shoot in log on both the Osmo Action and the GoPro. So if you're into more cinematic style stuff, you're gonna have an easier time color correcting footage out of either of these cameras than you will with the Sony. Let's talk about ease of use. We'll start right here with the GoPro Hero 7 Black. It's pretty easy to use. If you've ever used an action camera before, I'm sure you can figure it out. Power button on the side to start recording, just a button on top. If we want to stop recording, hit the button again, and we can set up voice commands if we want to do that as well. There's a touch screen on the back, which makes it super easy to adjust settings. And then you have a little LCD screen on the front, which just tells you your battery life, whether or not you're recording, how much space you have left, what video or photo mode you're in. So that can be really helpful right there. Now, the Osmo Action is even easier to use, and that's because it has a full color screen on the front. Just like the GoPro, we have a touchscreen on the back for adjusting settings, but a double tap on that back screen will bring up the front viewfinder, and that's a crazy feature. I can frame myself up here, I can see exactly what the camera's seeing, I can tell if it's recording, and it's just super simple to use. The Sony, on the other hand, not as simple. We have some tally lights around it. If you don't know what a tally light is, it's basically a red blinking light that lets you know it's recording. The Sony has 3 of them, so you can kind of see if it's recording from different angles, but we have no front screen, no back screen either. There's no way to tell how you're framing up your shot unless you have the additional viewfinder accessory, which in this day and age doesn't make a lot of sense. Both the GoPro and the DJI have apps where you can view what you're looking at. Ease of use for the Sony, it's a clear loser. We do have this little screen on the side to adjust settings, but that doesn't do you much good if you can't see what you're recording. All 3 of these action cams have an app to go with them, which is pretty handy, so let's check those out. First up is the GoPro. We'll just control our GoPro here, and connects pretty easily. So we have a viewfinder there, not much lag. We're able to adjust all our settings and check our battery life. Pretty much do everything we can do on the camera, but remotely. So if the camera is in a hard to reach spot, we can adjust everything right on here, start and stop recording. We can even live stream onto a live streaming platform like Facebook, which is a really cool feature. And overall, GoPro really has their software pretty dialed in. They've been doing it for long enough. They know what they're doing, and you can really trust them when it comes to the apps. Now let's check out the DJI Mimo app, which is what you use for the Osmo Action. So we'll turn our camera on here, open the app, and head right into it. This is a really good app, I will say. It doesn't take long to connect, uses Wi-Fi instead of Bluetooth, just like the GoPro. And once we load into it, we're able to get a viewfinder, change modes. Again, there's not a lot of lag here. We're able to adjust all our settings remotely, everything like that, which is really cool. We can play back our footage. Pretty much does everything the GoPro does. The only thing I will say that's a little bit annoying about the DJI software is that you have to connect it to the app right out of the box. The GoPro you can take out of the box, start recording right away. This takes a little bit of a setup process. You need to update the software more frequently. So the software's got a little bit of an edge on the GoPro. It's not bad on the Osmo, it just takes a little bit more maintenance. Okay, lastly, let's take a look at the app for the Sony FDR X3000. It's called Action Cam, and this is honestly the worst app I've ever used. It has a 2-star rating in the App Store, which explains a lot. You have no way to basically connect your camera and look at your footage. You can't check the viewfinder. You can't check and see what you've already recorded. The only thing you can do is import your footage and create a little movie out of it. But let's say you record 4K footage on your camera. When you go to import it on your phone, it downscales it to 1080p. So you're losing quality, and really this app doesn't do anything. So all three of these cameras have stabilization. I have them all mounted to roughly the same position on the outside of the car. The Sony has optical image stabilization, so the lens actually moves around a bit to help balance out some motion. The GoPro and the DJI, they're both done through software, so it's all electronic. Let's go down this bumpy section of road down there and see how the stabilization works on all three of these action cams. And again, the Sony was the clear loser here. The optical image stabilization from a few years ago just really can't keep up with the digital solutions GoPro and DJI are offering. These two cameras are gimbal-like. It looks like you have a DSLR mounted on a full 3-axis gimbal. It's really crazy. I don't know how they do it. Again, the DJI has the slight edge over the GoPro, but they both look really good. If they weren't side by side, you probably couldn't tell the difference, but the Sony does not handle bounces and bumps all that well. One of the last things you'll consider when you're trying to buy an action camera is price. The Hero 7 Black comes in at $399.99, the Osmo Action $349, and this Sony FDR X3000 $369.99, or $519.99 if you get it with the external remote, which is a huge waste of money considering both these cameras can do everything you can do with that expensive remote with your smartphone that you probably already own. If it were me picking between these two cameras, I would probably pick the GoPro. Their software is just dialed in, it's ready to go out of the box, and you can buy GoPro parts pretty much anywhere. So if you're on vacation, you crack your lens, or you need a new suction cup mount, you can probably get it at a nearby store. As of now, parts for the DJI are a little bit more hard to find. Thanks for watching. This is Alex with TFL Off-Road. Don't forget to go back to TFLoffroad.com for more news, views, and real-world reviews.